One of my favorite Dragon Ball references in all of manga comes from the tailed beast in Jinchuriki from the manga Naruto. For those who don't know, in Naruto there are ninja known as Jinchuriki who have powerful creatures made of chakra called tailed beasts sealed inside them. One of these Jinchuriki is this guy, whose name is Roshi. This by itself would be a fun reference, but it gets even better when you know the name of his tailed beast, who is a giant monkey, is named Son Goku. In the original story, the criminal organization known as the Akatsuki was tasked with capturing the tailed beasts in order to complete their plan of the mysterious leader known as Pain and their even more mysterious leader, Obito. So, what if, in an alternate universe, instead of this Roshi, they had to capture and defeat this Roshi? Could the Akatsuki pull it off, or would they be soloed by the old turtle hermit? Let's find out. For this video, we will be using Roshi from his peak of power in original Dragon Ball, which is any time after the 22nd Budokai and against King Piccolo. We will not be talking about any of his feats shown during Dragon Ball Super, as that would be incredibly unfair stomp in Roshi's favor, and I don't think anyone would disagree with that. As for the Akatsuki, it's important to clearly outline which members of the Akatsuki I'm talking about, as they are characters who have left the organization in canon, made their own spin-offs of the Akatsuki, and are just non-canon members entirely. We are talking about the main roster as it was in Naruto Shipudden. Hidan and Kakuzu, Itachi and Kisame, Sasori and Deidara, Konan and Pain, and finally Tobi, Madara, or Obito, whatever you want to call him. This fight can play out in two ways. The first is that each two-man cell individually goes after Roshi, and he fights them in a series of 1v2 fights. The other option is that the entire Akatsuki jumps Roshi at the same time in a 1 vs 9 fight, like that one ultimate from Ninja Storm 4. Both scenarios give either side some advantages and disadvantages, so we'll be individually covering each duo matchup Roshi has against the members of the Akatsuki before discussing how that would play out if they all attacked him at once. First are Kakuzu and Hidan, which are probably the most straightforward members of the Akatsuki to discuss given their pretty linear abilities. Hidan has immortality and his blood rituals, while Kakuzu has multiple hearts and the ability to use all the elemental nature transformations of water, fire, wind, and earth. I definitely think Hidan's immortality is not something Roshi would have to significantly worry about, given how Hidan can't really regenerate from the wounds he gives himself and needs Kakuzu to stitch him back together, so Roshi can just blow him apart without much difficulty. Kakuzu is a bit more tricky with his mixed defensive abilities. However, all 4 nature transformation attacks that Kakuzu has are essentially just a less concentrated and potent version of a Ki Blast, so I have no reason to believe they'd give Roshi a particularly hard time. At this point as well, Roshi should comfortably scale over these two. Roshi's power level at this point is 180, which puts him on par with 22nd Budokai Kid Goku, who had the same power level. This version of Kid Goku could react to laser beams and potentially the solar flare, and should be superior to the full power Roshi who destroyed Mount Frypan, as Roshi felt that he needed to train if he were to beat Goku again, meaning that Goku had surpassed that version of full power Roshi in strength. This puts base Roshi above mountain level and faster than light or relativistic in speed. Obviously, when he uses his max power form, he can destroy moons, but the max power state requires significant powering up and can only fire a single attack before Roshi is completely or essentially out of ki. This is why Roshi does not attempt to use the max power form against King Piccolo, as it is completely impractical in a fight setting. It only worked against Great Ape Kid Goku because Kid Goku wasn't directly attacking Roshi at the time and was randomly just smashing the Tournament Arena. In comparison, Hidan and Kakuzu are both inferior to the level of Sage Jiraiya, who's described as capable of destroying mountains with some of his most powerful jutsu. This likely also goes to the likes of Deidara and Sasori as well, who also would likely be under the high Sannin tier of power. An interesting case could be made about Sasori's poison, but Roshi has plenty of ranged abilities that would allow him to both remain outside of the direct range of the puppets, on top of the fact that he's likely faster and stronger than all of them. Sasori's 100 puppets potentially might just shatter against Roshi's body, much like they did against Sakura's punches. When it comes to scaling the Akatsuki, I do think Sage Jiraiya is actually a perfect cutoff point between the really strong members and the lower tier members. If you can beat him, you're pretty strong, and if not, you're probably a solid tier below those who can. Unfortunately, these first two squads contain, in my opinion, no one who can beat Sage Jiraiya. Itachi and Kasame are the first pair who begin to potentially raise some questions. Kisama's main draw is his ability to siphon off chakra from his opponents and drown them in his water jutsu. As always, this is either useless or very effective, depending on if chakra would function the same as ki does. However, Kisame would not be able to completely spam these and do a lot of his higher level water bubble or shark bomb jutsu, unless he plans on also catching Itachi in it as well. Speaking of Itachi, he's the first major person to solidly surpass the mountain levels mentioned before, as his Susanoo is capable of blocking island level attacks like Kirin and beat Orochimaru's Hydra State that should be comparable to Sage Jiraiya. As for speed, there are arguments that some of Itachi's jutsu might be light speed, like his water bullet, and he might scale over some characters with light speed statements like the Raikage and Mifune. Itachi is also the first person who has several major potent hacks for Roshi to deal with, like Amaterasu, Tsukiyomi, if you think it works, and sealing capabilities of the Totsuka Blade. The only two characters who potentially are above Itachi's level of strength are Obito and Pain, with Pain's strongest Shibaku Tensei also being island level, and Obito probably being even stronger than that based on Minato's assessment of Obito during Naruto's meeting with him. Of course, Pain has his own unique Rinnegan abilities at his disposal, but ultimately, the gravitational abilities of the Tendo Path substantially dwarf the other paths in overall power, despite not being what one call the most hacksy, given how other paths have the ability to absorb jutsu or rip out people's souls. Finally, of course, there's Obito, whose most notorious ability is also his most powerful, Kamui. This passive ability allows him to teleport parts of his body to another dimension before attacks or even the environment around can touch him, essentially making him intangible but with like extra steps. And finally there's Konan, whose power is just that they're made of paper. Cool. Anyways, can Roshi win? Like I said before, Roshi's victory is more dependent on how he can do against the stronger members of the Akatsuki rather than the weaker ones, as he would likely be able to just one-shot all of the lower tier members without much difficulty. However, when it comes to being jumped by potentially all the paths of pain, Itachi and Obito, Roshi's lack of both stamina and group handling abilities becomes really apparent. There's no question that Roshi's abilities like the Mafuba, Max Power Kamehameha, and even maybe the Thundershock Surprise would or could be way stronger than any member of the Akatsuki. But the problem is that these attacks require significant preparation and only hit one target. Unless the Akatsuki stand on a perfect line and allow Roshi to hit them with his moon-busting Kamehameha, he won't be capable of drastically overpowering them, as when it comes to their basic stats, he's pretty close to their level. Plus, Obito would likely just pass through the max power Kamehameha, and then easily beat Roshi afterwards, as he would essentially be completely out of ki. Roshi himself has also admitted that his stamina is not great when it comes to fighting large groups of enemies, even if he can one-shot all of them, as he doubted he had the stamina to take on the entire Red Ribbon Army. While they do have way more members than the Akatsuki individually are each way stronger than anyone in the Red Ribbon Army. Roshi has a slightly better chance if he fights the two-man cells one at a time, depending on how much rest he gets between each encounter. Even then though, I don't see how Roshi could get past something like Kamui, or have the stamina to fight Pain after destroying a potential Chibaku Tensei. So, could the Akatsuki capture Master Roshi? Yeah, they pretty likely could, but in the process, they would probably lose almost all of their members before doing so. It'll be really disappointing once they realize they caught the wrong Roshi. If you made it this far, thank you so much for watching. If you did make it this far, why not like and subscribe? I thought this was a pretty funny topic and honestly did not end how I initially thought it would. Also, I just want to say thank you so much for all of the support this channel is getting. We just surpassed 200,000 views on my last video and surpassed 5,000 subscribers on this channel. I cannot thank you guys enough. As always, if you disagree with my takes, comment down below how I'm wrong. See ya!